Let's discuss maritime now. We're looking at the duality of security and prosperity. We have a lot of wealth in the maritime, but what about security? Can we access it? And it's good to know that Nigeria accounts for estimated 70% of the shipping and commerce in West Africa and the sub-region, making its ports and waterways the lifeblood of international trade. And we know about 90% of global commerce is carried out on by sea. Oil and gas, of course, contributes a whole lot to Nigeria's maritime activities. You have others, coastal tourism, but how much of that have we explored? And what are some of those outstanding issues when you talk about Nigeria's maritime sector? We'll be having that conversation right here with Mr. Ubong Essien. He's the founder of Blue Economy Academy. He's also the convener of Code Blue, Nigeria's monthly ocean intelligence brief. Mr. Essien, good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning, Ini. It's good to be here.
So, I mean, I've had a lot of people in your sector, the Blue Economy, celebrating the fact that you have your ministry now,
yes.
You have your minister now.
Absolutely.
What difference has that made?
And we have our own thing, and most importantly, you can now pinpoint and have an institution around which to galvanize all of the efforts. And that's very important. There's clarity. We also now have a policy, a 10-year policy. And what does that do? It tells everyone, both within the country and without, that look, Nigeria has some stability, and so there are opportunities to make money, opportunities to actually fulfill the World Bank's definition of the blue economy, which is the sustainable use of all of our ocean resources to create jobs, sustain livelihoods, and of course, ensure that the ecosystem is maintained and sustained on a healthy basis. So there's a lot
how
there.
soon can we expect to see the results of all of this happiness and celebration and policy? Because we know policies in Nigeria, I mean, having them is one thing, seeing the results and the implementation of it is another thing.
As soon as we're truly willing. I was listening to your conversation earlier on with Soja Pangpa on the World Bank's observation, that red flag, that there's a lot of illicit flows out of the country. And it struck me, that's just one side of the equation. There is a lot of licit flows out of the country. There's legitimate revenue that also leaves the country. I'll give you an example. If you fly from London to Heathrow, maybe using one of the foreign carriers, I wouldn't want to mention names, and then you get into Lagos, the most lucrative route, Lagos-Abuja, and you still have one of those foreign carriers flying that route. Would it be fair competition with the likes of our own indigenous airlines? It wouldn't be. In fact, most of those airlines will probably be grounded in no time because those foreign airlines have access to funding. They have access to capital at very, very cheap rates, single digits, maybe between 4 to 5%. And that can sustain them for an average of 20 years in terms of the tenure. But here, most businesses probably, well, if you're lucky, you'll probably borrow at what? Double digits.
Obviously.
And then they'll tell you you have to pay back within 5 years or so. You cannot compete. Blue economy space, because you're talking about how soon. And I've said to you, it depends on how willing. How willing. The law is there. For instance, we have the Cabotage Act, which says that indigenous operators, this is your space. As far as movement of cargo within our waters is concerned, as far as transportation within our waters and along our coast is concerned, that is left for you. And that's quite protectionist. And it's fair, because in other climes, that's the same principle. But at this very moment, to what extent have we realized that? And remember, that same law provides for a fund known as the Cabotage Vessel Financing Fund. Why? Because it's meant to provide a buffer, meant to provide some support, so that more Nigerians can indigenously participate in the benefits and enjoy from the riches of our waters.
So I thought I think it was in April earlier this year, there was the announcement that the Cabotage funds are being given and something going on around that.
Well, I know the announcement was for August. Okay,
so it's supposed to be paid in August.
Yes.
So has it been paid?
The minister's announcement
in October?
in August. I'm not aware that that has started. But the point is, going back to your question, it is very possible that within a year, assuming you start disbursing today, ensuring that it can be as competitive as what foreign vessel owners, foreign vessel operators have access to, because that is where the disparity lies. That is where the playing field isn't actually leveled.
The funding?
Yes, in terms of funding. I mean, if you borrowed, let's say, $5 million to purchase a vessel, say in the UK, to pay back over 20 years at an interest rate of 4 to 5%. You're a financial journalist. Do you have such a deal in this current, in our economic environment or economic space?
But what's the Cabotage Fund supposed to do? What percentage?
So the Cabotage Fund is supposed to match what you have internationally. To say, all right, Nigerians, especially those Nigerians that are into shipping, you don't have to borrow at such high rates and then go through that agony. The government has warehoused some funds, even though it is funds that operators pay into by virtue of the 2% surcharge. And if that is the case, we now have about $350 million of the funds, according to NIMASA. Others speculate it could be more. With that arrangement, all you need to do is bring 15% of the cost of the vessel you want to operate. NIMASA will provide you with backing of 50%. And then the primary lending institutions, the banks, will provide the security of 35%. Now that makes it very easy, based on the support of government, for more players to get into that space and begin to, in the near term, create value and harness a lot of the potential within our blue economy.
So this is part of the low-hanging fruit. I know you have on one of your slides, the low-hanging fruit.
It's more than the low-hanging fruit. To me, it's an unpicked fruit. It's there. The law is there. The funds are there. The institutions are there. So what is left is, can we begin to act? Can we begin to give those who are in the business of shipping access to these funds and let shippers ship? Let operators operate, and let's begin to drive our blue economy, because you really cannot achieve the core objectives of any blue economy without ships, without vessels of various types, various categories, various ships performing various functions.
And that's why you have the Cabotage Vessel Financing Fund, the CF, and then you also talked about the death of interest rate trap, which you've mentioned. But I mean, who's going to pay the subsidy? I don't know if you understand what I mean. So Nigeria at this time is a high interest rate environment everywhere. So who's going to bear it?
Okay, so it's like having a subsidy system, but it's not a subsidy, because every amount is going to be paid back by the ship owners. The rule, or what Cabotage simply states, is that 4 things or 4 principles must be met. We want the ships to be built in Nigeria. We want the owners to be Nigerians. We want the crew and operators to be Nigerians, and we want it registered in Nigeria. This is an indigenous effort to grow capacity within and to harness the benefits from our waters. So it's not a giveaway. It's not a share of the national cake. Far from it. It's the reason why the banks, the primary lending institutions, as they are called, are involved. They are the ones that will conduct the risk assessment. So if, for instance, a bank looks at Mr. A and says, if you collect this money, it looks like you may likely go, as we jokingly say in maritime, go out there and marry a second wife and throw a party. We're not going to give you, because you're likely going to think this is your own share of the national cake. So you must put your own skin in the game. 15% of the total cost of this vessel and all it will take, and then you have access. and you begin to repay within a period of, I think it says 7 years, unlike what you have in advanced countries where you can actually repay such facilities over 20 years. And I think that is where we need to make some adjustments. 7 years still doesn't make us competitive.
Mr. Essien, let's even have the 7 years first, don't you think? If we start with the 7 years, we can actually move on. But I mean, it sounds like a well thought out plan.
Yeah,
everything has been thought of. So what's the problem? Why are we not seeing it happen?
All we simply need to do is to begin implementation. And I'm
Who is holding back the implementation? You have a ministry to yourself, you have your policy, you have celebrated all of that.
Set.
So
we already have
and you talk to your minister. I heard your minister is a listening minister.
Yes, and I'm sure he's listening. And I'm sure Nimasa also is listening. That's my constituency. Look, the blue economy will not work unless we work. We have, this is just one, I don't want to call it, as I said earlier on, a low-hanging fruit. It is a fallen fruit. It's waiting to be picked. Let's just put aside anything that might be personal, that might just be primordial, and say to ourselves, for once, everything is aligned, the stars are aligned, let's get to this and get it done. I haven't been in that system for 3 years. I do not believe it is impossible. The most impossible task we had to do with maritime security. And we collaborated.
The Navy said that's a done deal.
The Navy provided leadership. Nimasa came on board. We made the investment 7-8 years ago, over $190 million. We got the equipment. We got the manpower. All parties came to the table. For the first time in a long while, there was collaboration.
And
nobody
we saw
thought
the success of it, but because we're almost out of time, could it be that there's a weakness with capacity, the personnel, the skills? Do we have a challenge?
I do not believe we do. I do not believe that is the challenge. Nigeria has sufficient capacity. We have capacity in terms of the workforce. We're talking about the agencies that can do the work. We have good hands in Nimasa. Nimasa, of course, is the primary institution of government that is driving this. We have good, competent hands that can actually execute this. Nimasa has a robust cabotage department. And of course, you have MP and the rest. What we simply need is for the decision to be made and say, let's do this, and let's call this a goal. It is an unpicked fruit. We need it to drive our blue economy.
I guess it boils down to what Mr. Pampa said about fighting the illicit financial flows, the desire and the willingness.
That's all.
I think they call it political will.
Political will.
Now,
but there's the first political will that the president showed was to establish a ministry.
So the president has done his part. It's now for the minister. And you said the fund is available, so, I mean...
The funds are there. In fact, I would even suggest that we have a tracking system that puts information out there regularly as to the state of funds. Because you do have the master giving one state of funds in terms of the position, what we have, and then the stakeholders thinking or feeling that, oh, there could be more there, because you know the funds are denominated in both dollars, and of course there is a naira tranche of the same collection. So in that way, we can begin to comment. I don't see anything left. And I say this because I've also had the privilege of participating. Let's do this. Without ships, you cannot have a sustainable blue economy. Now, the security we have achieved, thanks to that collaboration, is pointless without the prosperity it was meant to herald.
So, but you also noted in one of your slides that there's an evolving threat landscape. What's that?
Okay, think about it this way. We now have calm in our waters and along our coast. The fact that you have calm does not mean that criminality has disappeared. It doesn't. So you must understand that if you don't want to fight this same battle again, ask yourself, we've dealt with piracy significantly. We're getting all the plaudits for the past 3 years. IMO, IMB, they're applauding Nigeria. We're also applauding ourselves. But then, what is the end of security? Is it just for the recognition of it? What happens to those young men? That's the essence of the Cabotage Act. Those young men along the coast that board skiffs to harass ships and kidnap crewmen from those vessels should be themselves on vessels carrying cargo. As an oil-rich nation, whether it is finished products or we're talking about crude, they should be on vessels themselves. They have some native skills. We could then brush them up, train them, upskill them, and make them part of the blue economy. That's what needs to happen, and that's the uneasy calm I'm referring to. I had the privilege recently of talking to the Navy about it, and I said to them, kudos to you, you have done well. But the point is, even the Navy must get in on the act of advancing maritime prosperity, because that is the job of even the military during peacetime. The Navy shouldn't sit back and then wait for crisis to begin, and then we go back to them as our knights in shining armor. They must lead as well and get involved in terms of what do we do next now that we have calmer coasts and safer seas. We must begin to take the necessary steps. More ships within our waters, along our coast. That's always a very good start.
And there's the pollution barrier also, you see, another threat to the blue prosperity.
To the blue economy. So when you look at the definition of the blue economy, there are 5 things. You want economic prosperity, that's one thing. You want to create jobs, you want to sustain livelihoods, but we're saying that you must do it in a sustainable manner. So take the example of a fisherman. He goes out there and he fishes. And then he comes back in the evening. He dumps his refuse in the same waters that he fishes from. So that fisherman has contravened one aspect, or one of the hands, or one of the fingers, I beg your pardon, of what the blue economy implies. Because that fisherman is polluting the same environment. He may not have enough fish stocks to fish from in the next few months. So that also is a threat. And one reason why that is a threat is because of the level of ocean literacy. When people don't understand that the ocean itself is a living, breathing space, it must be nurtured. I mean, we take care of ourselves. Look at how good you look. Look at how good you look, because you're taking care of yourself. That's to make you sustainable.
Yes. Because
the days ahead are coming. It's the same way with the ocean. We cannot feed from it and then disregard its well-being and contribute to health crisis for the ocean.
All right. Thank you so much. Sounds like a big message we should be preaching at every point that we have the opportunity. But we do hope, I mean, as you noted, it's not a low-hanging fruit. It's untouched, ripe, unpicked, ripe fruit.
It's ripe for the collection.
We hope it's being picked very soon. Mr. Ubong Essien, founder, Blue Economy Academy, and also convener, Code Blue, Nigeria's monthly ocean intelligence brief. Thank you for your time on the program. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Ini.
Let's take another break. When we come back, we head to the global space. Please stay with us.